Good evening. Your time now is 5:52. I'm Jeanette Reyes.
And I'm Mona Kosarabdi, and this is Off the Record.
Not for real. This is Off the Record.
What would you say is the biggest misconception about sex?
It's still the
She is a certified sexologist, dating coach, and relationship expert. Shan Boodram.
What up, Shan?
How often should you be having sex?
When you said every day, I was like, ooh, okay.
yeah, you're
Like
right.
Monday through Sunday. If you continue to feel that level of passion for an extended period of time, it would significantly shorten your life expectancy.
Is scheduling sex, is that killing the vibe?
Like you told yourself, I'm seeing this person later, so you start to get aroused.
Speaking of open relationships,
Jeanette, what a transition. Go off. Okay. What is the most common question you get asked? Today, probably,
realized the other day, I'm like, I never got the talk.
Did you feel shame?
of course. Yes. What? Heavy, crazy amounts of shame. My husband's stepfather would come up to me and be like, I don't even know how to defend you. Let me ask you guys this question. What is something that you talk about that other people are like, how do you talk about that?
Shan,
Hi.
welcome to the group chat.
Thank
girl.
you. When you said, should we welcome her to the group chat? I thought you meant in real life. And I was getting very excited. But no, it's just the name of the show. That's all.
No, we'll exchange numbers.
Okay.
don't worry,
No,
don't
I
worry.
thought you we got to invite her to the group chat. No, just this one.
I love how the conversation was already flowing. I mean, we could talk to you about so many topics. So we were like, oh my gosh, I'm going to ask her about this. I'm going to ask her about this.
It's so funny because the people we were telling that we were talking to you, there was someone who actually wanted to, can I be there? I have been following you for years, your YouTube. It's funny because I revisited a few YouTube clips and I realized I had already seen it because it was already seen halfway through. But you do such a great job of talking about important topics in a way that's relatable, that's authentic, and that makes it less intimidating and removes the stigma and all of that. So I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us.
Thank you so much. I actually am not doing podcasts right now, but the work that you guys do is so phenomenal and you're so cool and I want to be part of the group chat. So it's I'm gonna make an exception and do this, but I haven't been doing them. It's maybe my first one this year that was just personal.
How has that been, by the way?
Great. Yeah. I think adding more whys and purpose to your life and to the work that you do, because it's so easy to keep busy.
Yeah.
Which is a positive thing. I often talk about this, and maybe you can attest to this. When you're at this stage, people ask you questions like, how do you do it? How do you stay motivated? How do you keep on track? It's so easy at this point. You're in demand. People are asking for your time. People are giving you projects. There's deadlines. There's a need for what you provide. When you're first starting and it's just nothingness, day after day, no one's asking for you. There's no accountability. There's no pressure. There's no desire for the work that you do. That's the version of myself that I always look back on. And I'm like, wow, I'm so in awe of her, because there was years and years that not only were people not asking for me, people were asking me to stop. And I found that kind of persistence to keep in it. So I am more enamored by people who are just getting started than those who are, no offense, at our stage, right?
Yeah.
It's
I
not
can
hard.
totally understand that.
So how did you even get into being a sex expert?
Yeah, I often like to say that purpose is something that people feel they have to find, but often it's something we have to rediscover, because we live in a capitalistic, sexist, white supremacist society. There's just a lot of norms or ideals around what is good, what is just, what is right. And so if your desires don't fall within those ists, then you get discouraged very early on from it. Yeah. And then oftentimes it's as you get older, even, a lot of women of color didn't grow up thinking they wanted to be on TV because you didn't see a lot of examples of people like that. And so maybe you had those early inclinations and then reality hit and you're like, okay, well, maybe I want to be a camera operator instead. And it may have taken some time to rediscover this is actually what your passion is.
I remember when I first found out about you, I had not seen, I feel like the relationship space and even most particularly, rarely, the sex space, there's a lot of white men, right? And so I'm like someone who's a Black woman who is talking about this, and I just felt like I could relate to you a lot more. And then some of the topics that you were addressing, I'm like, oh, are we allowed to talk about this? And so I'm like, I feel like I'm secretly listening to you because I want to know. Or there's things that I never thought about and that you would present, and you would do it in such a open-minded way, a non-judgmental way. And I was really, really intrigued to find out, in the early days when people weren't checking for you like that, how did you keep going knowing that this is an important topic when they're like, oh, we don't hear this? Like, and sex is taboo for a lot of people,
Yes,
right?
yes.
They just shrivel up and they don't want to talk about it. So how do you take a topic that makes people uncomfortable but is so important and keep pushing and know that you're going to find your audience?
Yeah, I think that the only way for me was to take it to YouTube. I think for that exact reason, even similarly, like in sex ed, I remember this, so I can say this now. Sue Johansson, she's like a big, in Canada at least, she's like the Dr. Ruth for sex ed. But when I was first getting started out and in that space of not finding my footing in my audience, I had a website at the time, caused so much drama in my family, but it was called Save Your Cherry, which was my way of being like, I'm talking about sex, but I'm trying to stop people from having it, Mom and Dad. I was not. I was like sharing erotic stories. And the purpose of these erotic stories were to give people the full truth. And I chose that medium because growing up, I was really attracted to Eric Jerome Dickey and Sister Souljah, Omar Tyree, Connie Briscoe, people who wrote these books about coming of age stories that included sex. And I love those books. Again, to your point about actually getting human interest stories. You got to invest in these characters. You got to know them. You were on their side. And so when you saw them have sex or read about them having sex, there was a different meaning to it to you. But then I started having sex and I was like, that's not how it really works. Like, so you're giving this idea that you're getting an intimate look at someone's life, but then the most intimate parts of their life, it's based on a lie. It's based on a fantasy. So I was like, I want to write and tell stories that are real. And I still want it to be funny and engaging. I want you to feel the humanness of it. But then I also want to talk about this lack of satisfaction, which is very likely if you're a teen girl having sex with heterosexual boys, right?
Yeah, I want you to elaborate on that too, because you shared about your experience in college and how you kind of took an unhealthy approach to sex. And then you mentioned kind of like your what clicked for you, what you did, and then your pivot. So can you elaborate on that?
I started out with a really pure interest in sex from a very young age, which seems like an oxymoron. What, pure and sex and young age? Like, no, I genuinely was fascinated by the human body. I love touch. I love learning about intimacy. I was like addicted to soap operas, but when I was in grade 1, my Barbies were banned from being naked by the time I was like 6 years old. I had a lot of like consensual experiences with friends where I was exploring. And so I like really enjoyed that part of myself, getting to know it. Now, as you can imagine, I have Caribbean parents. I went to a Catholic school. I'm in Canada, which is a very conservative culture. So nobody was applauding these natural interest areas. So what I learned at that point is I had to really shut this part of myself down. It made people that I loved really sad. It made them disappointed. It made them angry at me. Now, when I became a teenager and hormones came into play, it was not as easy to shut it down because it was raging inside of me. Like I was like 14 having sex with all kinds of vegetables. It just like pulsing through my veins. And so I already learned I can't talk about this with anybody. I can't show this in any kind of way. It has to be something secret. So that's when porn and books and TV shows became like my guide, which threw me, when I started to actually become sexually active at an age appropriate time. I had my first sexual experience probably over 16 years old. And then, the full gamut of it around that time. But it was bad information that led me to those things. And then I thought it was me or it was my partner or something was wrong. And so I just kept trying. But when you're trying with misinformation, it's just a lot of errors. So when I turned 19 years old, I just thought to myself, this can't be it. And if it is, then I better go and find like a convent to go sign up for because maybe everybody was right. This is a very negative thing. So I decided to give myself a chance. I got a library card and I spent the entire summer in the library reading books, like textbooks about sex. And what I found was that there was amazing information, but it was so boring. It was so unlike Sister Souljah. It was so unlike the TV shows that I loved. It definitely wasn't as cool to watch as porn. So I was like, how do you take this and make sex ed sexy?
Yeah.
And that's when I started college.
At that point growing up, when everyone's telling you this is wrong, this is negative, did you feel shame?
Of course. Yes. What? Heavy, crazy amounts of shame, and not just for the topic, but for how I engaged with it, for the fact that I liked it.
Right.
You really feel like something is wrong with you.
How do you want to do that though? You see what I'm saying? Like when that's so ingrained in you, it's not just your parents, it's the culture, it's the people that you're around. How do you reverse or undo that?
I think if you take equal time or at least half the time, that's a reasonable amount of time to undo that. So some people come to me and they're like, I'm 21 years old. I now have sex positive ideals. I come from these backgrounds that were really oppressive, very sex negative. I started my journey 2 years ago. Why do I still feel this shame? It's like, well, because you're like 2 to 19. Like, what are the odds that you're going to be able to undo all that programming in that short amount of time when you have this many years of a very particular brand of messaging being beaten into you? Not beaten, but in some cases. So I think that for me, it was just time, right? Like, I'm 39 right now. I started sex education at 19. So at this point, what am I? What's the math on that?
20.
Am I equal years in to out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost.
I'm basically there. So
Yeah, yeah.
now all that's just been, I'm just old. So it just got rewritten. There's not enough program in there. The program got overwritten. So that's where we're at.
Do you still get pushback from people who are like, I can't believe you just said that? Or
Yeah, I wonder, compared to before and now, what's the
No.
reception?
I also, I think that's also I'd say no, but I'd say that's probably because I choose to tread the line of caution. And I look at myself as not the sex educator, but the average person who has had a very hard time interacting with this topic, who needs to feel like it's a warm, welcome, safe space that is actually going to benefit them. I really want to be accessible to those people. So I don't really take on the approach of being like, butt plugs, let's talk about it, which I can.
Yeah.
And maybe I have, but that may not be the thing that I lead with. So maybe in the future, maybe in the near future, I'll get back to being a bit more provocative. I can think the last time I did that was when my book came out, The Game of Desire, and I talked about vabbing, which is using your vaginal fluids as perfume. And that was like huge, provocative, controversial. And that was all the things, you dirty slut, you this, you that.
Really?
Yeah, of course, right? So like that's a time I think in recent
Did it hurt you?
history. I mean, it's embarrassing. Like it was really on a lot of different news outlets. And also there'd just be people like my husband's stepfather would like come up to me and be like, I don't even know how to defend you. You know, like there's just, and I was like, you don't have to. I actually don't care what you and or your friends think. But that was also a bit of that of people in my surrounding circle kind of feeling the shame of this and like the grotesqueness of it, which I also thought was an interesting study too, because you're like, why are you so grossed out by the ideals of bodily fluids on my body? I'm not talking about vaginal spray that I'm like walking into rooms and I'm like making people stick their tongue out on my own body. Like, why does that, bother you so much? And anyway, so nonetheless, I think for the most part, my work tends to be safe, and there's definitely pushback and people who don't agree, which I think is totally fine. But Wheezy is somebody who I think horrible decisions, good moms, bad choices. There's a lot of people I can think of, Emily Morse, who take a lot more of a provocative role and have to play the toll for that. And I think that they're incredible women.
it shows how deep the shame runs, right? Even when you're within your inner circle where it's just like they're uncomfortable for you, and even though it doesn't impact them, they're still like, I can't deal with this right now. What would you say to someone who wants to advocate for themselves if they're not getting pleasure, but they don't know how to speak up and they feel uncomfortable talking about this?
Okay, well, we have 3 people here. So do you want to answer that question first?
See, I'm shy. I'm like, oh.
Well, it depends. I'm trying to figure out how you're asking it because I'm looking at it. I'm thinking of the answer from an expert.
Yeah. She's going to give you your answer.
I know that.
Well, let me ask this question before we go there. Do you guys feel like there was a switch in your life where sex stopped being something that was automated and started being something that was personal? Like where you stopped having the kind of sex you're supposed to have and you started having the kind of sex that you really wanted to have?
Yeah, I think with my current partner.
I was going to say once married.
Yeah. Like what were you going to say?
There just like has to be a level of comfort, right? Mm-hmm. Where once you feel comfortable with that person, then you feel like you can explain what you're looking for without getting any judgment or without feeling the shame that is embedded in you. So yeah, I feel like once that comfort level.
I think also I've never really had an issue speaking up for myself as far as what I like, what I don't like, and kind of providing guidance. But it also helps a lot when the other person is receptive to feedback, right? Some people take it personally. Or let's say, some men might think I should be getting this without you telling me what to do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I've never had that issue, fortunately. So there's open communication and there's room to experiment and try different things. And if this isn't working, it's not an indication of someone, of us not clicking or whatever. So I'm very fortunate in that that's not an issue. But I don't know when it clicked for me in my mind with sex itself. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm good with it now. I will say, I don't know. I don't think I've shared this publicly. I'm not like, I didn't kiss for the first time until I was like 19. Like, it was something I did not do, period. It felt like even liking someone.
Loser.
I know, right? It felt very like, that's a bad thing. You don't do that, this, that, and the other. It was never said to me. I just got that impression. And I was like, like, I'm the good kid. You don't do that. And to have feelings of attraction to someone, there was like, I was in the 7th grade and I had a crush on this guy. And my mom asked if I liked him. And I was mortified. Like, that I could possibly, that you would ask me if I like a guy. So I totally avoided it, did not take part at all in any kind of, there was this guy in middle school. We liked each other. We knew we liked each other. He wanted to give me a hug. And I was like, hey. We don't.
Whoa.
But I went to Christian schools. Like, I went to
Yeah.
Christian schools. My parents are fairly conservative in that respect. But it wasn't, once I got into it, it wasn't a difficult transition, which is very, I'm now that I'm thinking out loud, it's actually a little weird because you would think with that upbringing, actually doing it is like, whoa, I can't believe I'm doing it. It was fine.
And also, you're a journalist. So I'm not sure how much your communication skills were something that you were sharpening and honing. That was just something that was ingrained in you, which is a different set of skills, which naturally applies in this case.
Yeah.
For me, I come from a very conservative community to the point where I think everybody is like, it's immaculate conception everywhere. Like, there's no, sex never happens. I don't even know the word for it in our language. And so with that, it's like, it's such a, like, if it's taboo here, at 100. And so definitely the conversations are not happening. If anything, the conversations that are happening is about like female genital mutilation, right? Where like you are trying to remove any pleasure from sex.
Did your parents have, I can guess the answer.
Absolutely
Did they
not.
have the talk?
Absolutely not.
Dude, I realized the other day, I'm like, I never got the talk.
My mom was just like,
And I'm kind of,
yeah, you don't like, don't be loose, like, and then, because, this is what happened. It was in 6th grade, and I was like, hey, you need to sign this paper for, like, sex ed, right? And I feel like I kind of was trying to, like, see what she would say, too. Like, I was like, oh, you need to sign this paper. And she was like, well, the thing is, like, when people are married, like, you don't want everybody to have access to you. So, like, don't do it. Don't be pregnant. Like, don't. And I was like, what are we actually saying? Like, no coherent sentence was actually formed.
Yeah.
But all I knew was, like, you don't want everyone to have access to you. Like, that's what I walked away with the conversation.
Right.
But other than that, no, absolutely not.
Girl, I thought you could, like, if they sneeze on me, if he sneezes on me, I might get pregnant. But I realized I was very, very ignorant about what sex was.
Yes.
Even up until the moment that I had it. Like, I was, like, embarrassingly ignorant. And I didn't realize it until after the fact, which is wild. Like, for it to be completely avoided.
I want to share as a language thing too, because vagina is the English word, and vagina translates to sheath, which is a place you store your sword. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
like
language
storage.
is very
yeah.
powerful.
It's a place that
Got
you
it.
put your sword when you're finished with it. You just
Yeah. Okay.
What is the most common question you get asked?
today, probably people who are partnered who have differing sex drives. Often people who just want to feel connection and they don't. I think what's the great and also difficult lift of an intimacy educator in 2024 is I don't get Googleable questions anymore. I mean, before, and I talked about this with like, formative sex educators, they would have experiences and, all their questions were like, I want to try anal. What do I do? And you're like, well, here's this plug and play sheet. Or if I want to buy a condom, what size should I get? People Google those ones now. So the questions that you get now are just much more nuanced, which is difficult on one end because I can't actually give you an answer. You asked me the question of how do you advocate for yourself in the bedroom? I actually can't give you an answer without talking to you.
I see.
Like I can give you, the truth of the matter is there's tacit knowledge and there's functional knowledge. A lot of us have tacit knowledge when it comes to sex. We all have tacit knowledge when it comes to the internet, right? We're like, I kind of know what's happening, but do you have functional knowledge? Like, can you build that wireless router? Can you explain to me how the internet is happening? Can you walk me through the difference between dial-up and a signal? You probably can't, but you're like, can like feel the answers to these things. And that's a lot of people when it comes to their bodies, when it comes to sex.
Yeah.
I actually don't have the words for it, but I have a vibe for what's going on. So I think the number one thing there would be giving people functional knowledge, which is language they can actually take their tacit intuitive information and explain that to somebody else, and that person can understand it and apply it to them. But other than that, like there's a million different things that you might require in order to get advocacy, and some answers might be overlooking your background. It might be overlooking your family history. It might be overlooking your trauma. So yeah, the questions I think are just much more complicated, which is good and bad.
Yeah.
What would you say, broad question, but what would you say is the biggest misconception about sex?
It's still the clitoris. It's still how women orgasm.
Yeah.
It's still that. It's frustrating to me because I actually recently did a live podcast, and this woman stood up and she said, I've only had 2 orgasms. What am I doing wrong? And everybody was like, oh, there's like all this sounds from the crowd. And then you start to investigate and you talk to her. It's like, no, she orgasms all the time from masturbation. She orgasms frequently from oral sex. She's talking about penetrative sex. And so you discount all your other orgasms, and this is the only one that counts. And newsflash, hon, that penetrative orgasm was likely a clitoral orgasm. It's just a matter of how you were stimulating your clitoris in a different way. I mean, majority of sex researchers now will tell you that it depends on how high up the glands of your clitoris, the head, which as we know, the clitoris is shaped like a wishbone. So all you see on the outside is just the tip right here, but there's this whole network underneath it. But some people, their glands is close enough to their vaginal opening where when you're having sex, there's enough friction to pull at the clitoris. So you're still getting a clitoral orgasm, but you're getting it through penetration. Or for some people, it's the legs of the clitoris might be a little bit more fluffy, or there could be a Skene's gland component. But by and large, the vaginal canal has as much nerve endings as the roof of your mouth. So if you just took your tongue to the roof of your mouth right now, like, are you orgasming from that? Right? It's back of your hand. So I think it's just important to note that women are just like always seeking, and it's not a bad thing. I think it's beautiful to open up your pleasure potential the same way that you should be open to a nipple-gasm or a back of the knee-gasm or a sleep-gasm or a touchless-gasm. Like there's many different ways that, I mean, as we know, our brain is our biggest sex organ. So there's many different ways in which you could experience a sudden euphoric release of tension. But putting all the pressure and emphasis on the vagina, when that is 1/3 of women's reliable way for achieving orgasm without direct outer clitoral stimulation, is just a little bit nutty to me.
Why do you think there's so much emphasis on that?
Wouldn't it be great if exactly what I liked is exactly what you liked? Like, I think that'd be amazing. Awesome. Yeah, I'm a dude. I have sex exactly how I want to have sex, what gets me off, and it's perfectly in line with what you need as well. And it starts when I'm hard and it ends when I'm flaccid, and in between there, both people got satisfied. Sounds like a pretty good package deal. And a woman who can satisfy that formula seems like a good lover.
So you think it's a very male-centric view?
Yeah, I do. I do. While also not discounting the fact that there are 1/3 of women who that is their truth. And there are many people who do. But what I love to tell people is there is no way of us measuring fMRI scans to determine if your clitoral orgasm, my nipple orgasm, and your vaginal without clitoral stimulation orgasm is better than both of ours, right? So this idea that there is like a superior orgasm, there's just been no study or proof of that. So rather than amplifying this as like the holy grail that if we could just get to this, we're actually finally having sex, just celebrate the pleasure that you're actually having. Just like men do, because I don't hear none of them crying about their prostate orgasms, their lack of nipple-gasms. They don't. They address the fact that they have like a primary sex organ, which analogous to that is a clitoris, that functions well, that feels pleasurable for them, for most of them, some, not all. And that's the end of the story. Everything else is a bonus. I just wish that we approached it that way too.
I want to shift a little bit because you had a really candid conversation about how kids in particular affect your sex life. I have a 2-year-old, and
We're doing
listen, I underestimated. But also just when you're in an exclusive relationship, you've been together for a long time and things can get a little monotonous and you want to switch it up. And like, how the heck do you keep the spark alive? And is scheduling sex, like, is that killing the vibe? Have we really gotten here where we're scheduling sex? And what does that say about our relationship? So,
Didn't you schedule sex in the beginning though?
yeah. In hindsight, you're like, yeah, we did.
When you're like, are you free later?
Right.
Like, yeah. Do you want to come by? Okay, cool.
Oh, I see where you're getting at.
Yeah. So why do we, considering we did do that, because I think it may have been one of your videos where I was like, well, I think we did schedule this before. Why do we look at it differently?
Maybe because the in-between period. I mean, at the end of the day, whether we're scheduling or not scheduling, what we're talking about is we're mourning the loss of, for lack of a better term, passion. That irresistibility factor where I can't even control myself. Like when I'm around you, my body responds. You know, a lot of that has to do with preparation. Like you've told yourself, I'm seeing this person later. So you start to get aroused. So the scheduling component actually does coincide with that. But then again, naturally, it's just my favorite fact is if you continue to feel as passionate towards your partner, and when you talk about passion, we're talking about butterflies in the stomach. We're talking about increased stress levels, reduced appetite, dilated pupils, quickening of your breath, more blood flow to your lips, like flushed cheeks. Like there's a physiological reaction that comes with passion. If you continue to feel that level of passion for an extended period of time, it would significantly shorten your life expectancy. Because you're putting yourself into fight or flight constly. Like it's a stressful event on your nervous system. This is from Dr. Helen Fisher, whom is someone I deeply adore, and her work is really great. So that to be said, we should look forward to feeling like we're now in control of this part that used to be out of our control, right? And the out of control is fun because it's animalistic, right? It feels like the movies, and there is like a joyful component to it. And it has its place. And you'll probably still experience that at some points if you have sex with your partner 50 times a year conservatively, right? You're going to experience that probably 5 of them, which is like a good number. And the other 45, you have to be a bit more intentional about it. And that's okay. So I actually now work with a company that's called Aria. And they essentially are a subscription service that sends couples like new experiences each month. And not just that they send you like the tools for that experience, but they also send you education and then conversation guides for it. So it's another way of just being more intentional about it. And now, yes, like we're not as excited about the idea of having sex, but when we get a box that has like paint, chocolate paint in it, we're excited about that. When I see like a box with like different sizes of socks, and then I learn the ways that we can apply this in the bedroom, that's exciting to me. So it's not a bad thing, but it's also okay to mourn that you are losing a bit of a good thing.
What are you mourning? Like for you personally, what was your life before? And what is it now in terms of your sex life?
Yeah, I think when we first me and my husband started off as fuck buddies. I like hate to use the crass term, but genuinely we were not friends with benefits. We were not friends. It was literally like, I need to get off. You need to get off. You live within walking distance. I think you're hot. I think you're hot. Let's do this. At the time, it was just like really not a place in my life where I was looking for anything more. I genuinely like wasn't sure if I could stay in the country. So I wasn't even able to work at the time. So it really wasn't even a thought of mine. So we started off on that boat, which is positive, but also what pressure. You know what I mean? Like if that is the kickstart, the foundation of your relationship is like you had this uncontrollable sex drive for each other that you didn't even want to know that person's last name.
Right.
You're like, I don't even care. I just need you to take your clothes off. Like that was that. Like I could think about our first night together. It was just like, it was insane how much electricity there was in the room.
How'd you guys meet?
I met him at a party. And when I saw him, I was in a long distance relationship that was on and off. And I saw him, and my first thought was, oh my God, he would be the perfect revenge fuck. That's the feeling he gave me. And so like, that's like that, again, that like animalistic, like, oh my gosh, like feeling. And it wasn't anything deeper than that. But so now when we first got together, we moved into within each other. The first year we had sex every day. And it was kind of under the same pretense of like, it's not even a choice. Like our bodies need to do this. And then year 2 was like, okay, well, taking some breaks here and there. And then year 3, you got to really think about it. And then year 4, you got to talk yourself into it. Yeah. And then, year 5, you come to a place where you're like, a lot of the times I'm not even remotely interested until midway through.
So then let me ask you, was that happening because life was just getting busy? Or that's just the nature of being with someone consistently for years? Do you see what I'm saying?
And also, did your relationship status change in any time during that 5-year period?
I actually can use myself as a litmus test on this, which is not a very strong thing to do because there's just variances. But I can tell you, bar none, I have never broken up with my partner. We have never gone through an extended rough patch together. There's never been a reason that we have been drawn apart. And physically, after both of my kids, I was able to have sex and I was interested in sex to different degrees. I think during my second pregnancy, my sex drive was so incredibly low. And thank God for the work that I do because I felt no ways about being like, not only am I not interested, don't bring it up to me. Because I already had one kid. So I already have somebody in my life who needs more of me than I can provide. And I already feel like I'm not enough in work. I already feel like my body is changing. I felt so many things that I was like, don't. Just fucking don't.
Can I just say, though, there's a lot of women in particular out there who will hear that. And it makes you feel good because you're like, gosh, if she felt this way and this is Shan, maybe something's not wrong with me, right? Maybe it's not, maybe I'm not the issue. Maybe my partner's not the issue. Heck, there could be partners out there who are on the receiving end of that, who think you're not as attracted to me anymore. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, or they're thinking something even worse. But it's just, I think for a lot of people, it brings them a lot of relief because it normalizes those feelings and those phases.
Because when you said every day, I was like, oh, okay.
You're
like Monday through Sunday?
Every day, girl, if not 2 times a day. It was like, and I'll think about that time fondly.
Yeah.
And I know we'll never get back there. And that doesn't make me sad to say.
So how often should you be having sex?
As often as the person who wants it the least.
Glad you brought that up. So you mentioned that on, I don't know if it was originally a post on social. And I was actually really surprised at how strong the reaction was in your comments. And I liked that you kind of confronted it head on. What did you make of the reaction? And I should say the reaction is, gosh, I'm trying to think of how would you summarize how people reacted to it?
People, I think,
because it was like
not outraged.
It was like what they were saying and what they weren't actually saying.
Yeah, it was just basically like, this is the recipe for divorce.
Yeah,
this is how you end up getting cheated on. Like just doom and gloom. I guess I think maybe that was it.
Because I have
and then the women, a lot of women were saying this is consent. Like, what do you? If she or he doesn't want to, then. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like if you're moving forward with the person not wanting to, you're in a different territory. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say on the other side of the coin, though, I know a lot of friends that struggle with their partner never wanting to have sex.
Yes.
So then it's like if the answer is never, then do we just never do it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we address why it's never. That's probably a harder question, a longer question, but a more interesting question. Why do you never? Is it a physical thing? Is it a diet thing? Is it a medical thing? Is it something that I'm not doing for you? Is it an incentive thing? And then if we took sex out of it and we just said pleasure, if we just had an experience of pleasure, what would that look like for you? Let me tell you a real truth right now. I am so horny to get my back rubbed. Like I feel like I have teenage boy sex drive horniness for getting my back rubbed. Like I literally could see a pole and be like, look, can I rub my back?
No.
Is this gonna rub my back? Like, and every night we go to bed, I'm like, can you rub my back? Like sometimes even now we've incorporated that really heavily into sex. That's a big incentive for me. I'll be giving him head, you rub my back. It's an amazing trade-off. Yeah. This is all I've ever wanted. Just touch my back.
Win-win. Yeah.
Did that surprise you?
No, I mean, that's a part of it too. Like it's a part of the joyful exchange. I love doing something for my partner and I want him to feel like he's also giving me pleasure and he knows that he is. And so if, again, like that's also speaking to it, like never, okay, why? What is it that we're not doing during sex that's not incentivizing you? What is stopping you from wanting to feel that way? And then I also talked about in the longer video, I think is important to note is when people hear and, how much do you want sex? They're only thinking of that first year of my relationship where we're like, let's do it. Not the times that we've laid down for a while, we've watched a show, we've kind of like, I nudged you, you nudged me, we kissed for a second. We can both tell that we're like trying to get it started, but we're not that interested. But it's like there in the air. And someone has to bite the bullet, like, let's just do this. And then you do it. And like a workout, afterwards, you're like, I'm so glad I did that. I didn't want to do it initially, but we started doing it. I was enjoying it. And now that it's done, I'm so happy we did that.
I don't even know if I'm wording it right, but like, is sex incompatibility ever a reason to say, I don't think this relationship is going to work?
Yeah, I think it's a longer way down the line than people think, though. I think people think that that's like the first, like, we're sexually incompatible. And it's like, well, or you could just use my vibrator while we're having sex. And I actually do enjoy sex. I actually do want this kind of pleasure. Just the way that we're doing it in this dynamic is not working for me. Or I'd love if we played music that like would, whatever it is for you that you would get. I mean, it's not an activity that is like working out, right? Like working out is just genuinely sucks. You can get into euphoric states with it, but it's like, you're putting your body through pain. You're supposed to be doing an activity that brings you pleasure, relaxation. It's supposed to be a genuinely freeing, safe space. You can say anything, make any sound, make any face, talk about crazy fantasies. Y'all, like what my brain thinks of when I'm having sex is, I used to resent myself for that. Resent's the wrong term, but I used to feel shame for how like my thoughts would be. And now I'm like, this is part of the party. And it's the only place I get to play in that particular way.
There's this, I'm sure you know her, Esther Perel.
Of
You've mentioned her a few
course.
times.
Yes.
I love her. I actually went to one of her speaking engagements the other day, but she had mentioned ways to kind of create desire, especially when you're in a long-term relationship. And she was talking about, it's good to have your own worlds.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, I'm really simplifying it. It's almost like absence makes the heart grow fonder, but like have your own worlds, your own passions, your own thing. And then when you come together, let's say sexually, you come into each other's worlds. And she was like, couples that are just always like, then this works for some people, but are always together, do everything together. It makes it hard to create that space that then you crave to get into together. One of the things that's really fascinating that she talked about is when you're watching your partner do something they love from a distance, and there's a crowd of people watching, kind of admiring your partner, whether it's a speaking engagement or singing, and they're not yours in that moment, and how that builds attraction, admiring your partner doing something they love that has nothing to do with you.
Yes.
And something that brings them joy. What do you think about that, and what's your experience been with that?
Yeah, I think it's, beautiful advice. And I think that also speaks to, again, talking to that spontaneity, that like raw desire feeling. I spent 6 weeks away from my husband, and I always share things in podcasts midway through, being like, this is okay. My parents will not listen to this point, but we could also strike whatever you want. Don't worry. But we were away. I was away from him for 6 weeks, and then we got back together. And I was sleeping in my parents' room because like they gave me the room, for whatever reason. I was like, and then he started coming on to me. Like, I cannot have sex in my parents' bed. Like, this is an absolute no. But my body was like, we're doing this. That kind of irrational desire. I mean, that's maybe a good way of putting it. You can get back to that sometimes. And absence does definitely offer more opportunities to do that. What I will add on to what she was saying is, as somebody who does a lot of things with my partner, I think that the self-expansion theory is something that I really loved learning about. In essence, it talks about what unique to humans. We, as species on this planet, all want to survive. We want to thrive to some capacity, have our basic needs met, not exist in fight or flight all the time, have some semblance of safety. And then also at the top of that is to procreate. And humans have an additional thing, is to expand. So if you have a dog and your dog is surviving and it is thriving, it's procreating, like it's happy in its free time, they'll take a nap in the sun. Humans will be like, how do I turn my bed into a spaceship, right? Like when all your needs are met and everything else, you still want to expand. You want to learn, you want to grow. And so when you first get into a relationship, there's so many opportunities for expansion. People I don't know that you know, things that you know that I don't know. And so the more that we become enmeshed, the less opportunities for expansion there are. And if we're doing everything together and we don't have distinct separate hobbies that we're able to bring back to the relationship, and we're both bringing back the same thing, it becomes stagnant. And then you become like that dog who's laying in the sun all day, and you're like, I'm bored and I can't figure out why. So I do think whether you do it together, like you just have to have something fresh, something new, some way that you are uniquely building up your knowledge base or your database, your friendship base that is going to be interesting and intriguing to your partner, and they have to be on the same mission for you.
A big part of relationship is compromise. So when two people don't have the same sex drive, is there compromise involved? Like, are you, if your partner wants it 4 days a week and you only want it 2, do you meet at 3?
Yeah, I think an easy thing, I mean, language is helpful in this way. Like there is, I wish I wrote it down, the way that I describe desire. So there's spontaneous desire, which is a way of just saying it just happens. Then there is responsive desire, where it's like we're committing to doing this even though we're not really in the mood. Mm-hmm. And then to me, there's compassionate desire, where it's like, I actually personally don't want to do this, but I do want to make you happy. And so I feel like in some cases, if you can have that conversation off the top of where you are in that, when we're talking about sex, it just allows a bit more information for like, how do we go about this? So maybe you can start there, but I honestly just think you start with like, really why? Why do we have such differing needs on this? And it could be physiological, like testosterone levels, or it could be something that's more mental. So I just think before you just say, oh, we have mismatched sex drives and we have to come up with all these games and activities, like just intrinsically ask, what do you like about sex? What feels pleasurable to your body? Do you think we're bringing that into the sexual relationship? And also, what do you need in order to be in a sexy space? Like there are a lot of people who have kids where you're like, yeah, if the dishes aren't done and the whole place is a mess and you're trying to come on to me and I know I'm going to do this, then I have to get up and organize the house. And you're not really helping with that. Yeah. Not only do I not want to do this, but I resent you for even asking me.
Yeah.
So how sexy would it be if your partner cleared up all the dishes, cleaned up everything, and then approached you? Like it would just set the stage a bit differently. And also acknowledging, like what turns somebody on? So again, like I said, I wish that there was like shorter answers to these things.
No, this is good. Because I think for everything else, there's always like communicate with your partner, right? Ask them what, they want more of you and what you could do for them. But it's never like that with sex. It's always like assume this and assume that. Yeah. Instead, It's like, let's talk about, and I feel like it comes from a non-judgmental place when you ask. It's not like you're shaming the person like, you don't do enough or we don't do it enough. You're actually inquisitive and you're asking, where does this come from? Let me understand you better. It leads with them.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's the joy of being in a long-term relationship too, because you live enough life to kind of see that cycle play out of times that you're really on it and your partner's not, and then you took offense to it, and then they really wanted it and you didn't, and then they took offense to it, and you started like looked at it all net, and you're like, none of this had to be this way.
You say that a lot about in your relationship. Trust me.
It didn't have to be this way. It didn't have to be this way, right?
Yeah.
Like, there was a conversation in between.
Yeah.
There was an acknowledgement that just could have saved us a lot of drama.
When do you consider consulting like a sex therapist? Like when do you know you're at that point? When do you say, a good book will help? Just read a book, go online, take a course. When are you at that point and how is it beneficial?
Oh, I have because every therapist will tell you that people come to their office too late. And many people will say, start with counseling. I don't agree.
Really?
I really don't.
Is it because you should explore on your own without any interference from like an expert
Because
or
you're
something?
introducing the idea that someone knows better about your connection than you. You're introducing the idea that you need a mediator for all of your problems. So I think an educator versus a therapist, which they can be the same, don't get me wrong, and maybe group therapy before I went to individual therapy, where it's just more general information and we get to take that, distill it into our own rules, our own mantras, so it came for us. So you can trust me as the expert on my love life and my love needs. We don't need a therapist to like make those sets of rules for us. It's a very tricky thing because, I'm actually somebody who has done tons of work in the mental health field, and I've never really been to therapy. And I've tried, and I've gone a couple of times. And as I mentioned, I went recently to like this therapeutic retreat. And the thing that always just comes up for me is just like, I don't know, there's a lot of focus on pathologizing, like what's wrong, rather than like using expressive points of like joy and connection and laughter and whimsy as jump off points. So maybe I would like look for a therapist who takes it from that frame point. But I definitely, but also look for, if I did really want that help, which is a beautiful thing to want and both acknowledge, somebody who's like, this is your guys' relationship. I want to hear from you. I'll ask the questions. I'll do motivational interviewing because you may not know what questions to ask, but I want you guys to design this. I want you guys to figure out your values. Like, I trust you, to know what's best for you. I trust you to know what feels good in your body. And then your partner can also start to build that trust as well.
Yeah.
No, my husband and I went to couples counseling and I was like, ma'am, am I right? Am I right? Like I wanted her to be the mediator so bad, just so I could have someone on my side. So
And were you right?
I was right. I mean, I'm always right, but.
And that's valuable, right? So that's, I think when I say controversial responses, I really want people to hear that this is not the right way. It's a different, and I think controversy in general just means that there's many right ways and that people feel passionate about their ways. I don't necessarily feel passionate about mine, but I definitely acknowledge that it's what was worked for me and what I've observed could work for other people.
One of the things, and Mona, you and I were talking about this the other day, I find that more and more we find it difficult, like it's hard for us to fathom that what could hurt our relationship works beautifully for them.
Yes.
And that's okay. And I don't know if it's our way to we want to neatly organize and categorize things as this doesn't work and this works. And so when a couple says we're actually really happy, let's say it's an open relationship. And I mean, the way people are absolutely not, and this is horrible and this, that, and the other. It's just really fascinating for me to see because then you have people, I think it perpetuates that shame. It really limits people and you feel like you have to fit into this cookie cutter approach to sex and relationship. Speaking of open relationships,
Jeanette,
or any kind
what a transition. Go off.
Hey, okay.
She says, Vina.
What a transition. I was seeing the seeds there and I was like, is she about to plant this?
We connected there. So no, I was going to say, what prompts someone, what's the indicator? Is an open relationship a solution too? How do you know this is what's going to work for us?
I don't think it's a solution to. I've never seen it successful. And again, I haven't done a wide enough study on this. The research that I've read, my own experience, people I've seen, I feel like it's an orientation. You just are or you're not. I think that some people just thrive in different kinds of commitment structures. And there's a spectrum like everything else, right? So I think you just have to know if that's what you like to do and how you like to connect. I can't tell you how many monogamous people I've spoken to about this who are like, I could never, da-da-da-da-da. And then you start talking to them more and they're like, so there was this one meeting and this one person and this one time. And then it also becomes a thing where it's that's a natural human response and human emotion. And because you're in this dynamic where you hold these beliefs, you can't even acknowledge that with your partner, that story could even exist. And the feeling of it feels like a betrayal or makes you question if you even love that person. And maybe it's just acknowledging that you're a monogamous person with some capacity for polyamory or for multiple attractions, whatever it is. But I just know me, you're Dominican. There's a Dominican guy right now that I have we have the flirtiest relationship.
He'll get you in trouble.
I know. He's so sweet. Oh my gosh.
Don't get caught up with Poppy. Don't do it.
And it feeds me. It's something really fun. I really enjoy it. And if it wasn't him, it was this guy in Toronto this summer. So that's just a constant storyline. And that's been a through line for my life. Whenever, and I thought about this because there were some relationships I was in the past where I would suggest the idea of multiple partners, not having the language of open relationships. This is a long time ago. I'm like, well, we can see other people. And then they would, and then it wouldn't work out. And I'd be like, I shouldn't have done that. But I'm like, but I really enjoyed the dates I went on. So I don't know. I just feel like that's just been a consistent for me. And if you really reflect on yourself, do you experience desire for other people, even when you're really satisfied and really happy? Which is why I think it's not a solution, because you won't actually know until you're in a really great place in your relationship.
Wasn't that what Aisha Curry got in trouble for? Was she was saying that all these women are throwing themselves at Steph and she wanted some attention. She's like, I just wanted someone to be like, damn, you look nice. And that to me, it seemed natural. You want someone to acknowledge that you still got it.
Yes. Yeah. That I wonder how she feels about that today.
It was interesting to see the reaction she got to that. People thought it was are you saying his attention isn't enough? Why would you desire other men to find you attractive? And that's an insult to your partner to want that.
I actually think it's sexier when people find your partner attractive. Someone flirting their partner is like, oh, okay, let me set my game up. Or I just think it makes that person more desirable when you know that other people want them.
Yeah. Yes. And it's just fun. It's a fun feeling to have. I mean, I get at the end of the day, like I said, if everything is a spectrum, that means that there has to be hard stops on either end. There has to be genuinely people in this world who are like, I just am attracted to one person and one person only. I don't want attention from anybody else. I don't have any attention for anybody else. Like, this is it. Just like there's the person who's like, I love everybody. So I do believe that there's a percentage of the population who does feel that way. I think it's a lot less than people represent. And that's a large part just because of what's been given to you as an option. And if every movie, I watched a movie that was about Wonder Woman, but the maker of that was in like a triad relationship.
Can you define what that means?
I even balked when I said it because I'm like, I think this is right. But essentially they were all dating each other. So it was like an equal partnership love between three people. And I cried at the end because like, this is my first time seeing a positive example of a polyamorous couple. Like just genuine, like a joyful, loving, explorative, fun, dynamic relationship. It wasn't without problems, just like any other relationship is not. You know, when you're taking imperfect people in an imperfect world, going through brand new situations, shit's about to, bound to come up. But I love that. So I think if we had more examples of that and more people's parents talked about that openly, as we know, many people's parents are polyamorous to some degree, but you didn't find out till later about the second family across the street. So
I was like, are many people? And then when you described it like that, I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know that was what we called it. But it does fit into that category. You're right.
That's monopoly, where one person is polyamorous and one person is monogamous. But yeah, so I think that if we had more, then more people would be like, I think also too, when you're fighting feelings within yourself, and somebody brings it up, it's very triggering. You're like, that's not how it's supposed to be. No, because that's what your inner voice has to tell yourself every day.
So you think some of the pushback is because people have conflicted feelings themselves and they don't want to hear it from you?
Yes, and also people who have never gotten to that stage of commitment who still idealize that I can meet one person who will take all of this away.
Yeah.
All insecurities, all need for attention, all need for belonging. One person is going to take all of it away. And it's like, it doesn't work that way.
It sure doesn't.
But it's nice to believe.
One of the things that comes up a lot when you talk about open relationships is how do you, like they'll say it's a recipe for disaster, right? What if someone falls in love? What if you start building these ties and you get attached and suddenly things are messy? How is that a type of person? Is that boundaries that you put in place? How do you ensure that it doesn't get to that? And if it does, what do you do?
I feel like it's basic math, right? Like I think that's obvious that could happen. And there's so many studies that I have read, which I imagine are written by people who are consensually non-monogamous or sex positive to some degree, that just talk about the overwhelming success of open relationships. Similarly, what LGBTQ relationships have in their benefit is just when you already come from a stigmatized place, you have to have so much more conversation and you have to gain that muscle. Like, how miraculously you somehow had the tongue to say what you wanted sexually. You may have gotten that from somewhere, but you already have to build the muscle of having hard conversations, of advocating for yourself, advocating for your needs, and of talking about things between the lines. Whereas when you're trying to aspire to a label that already feels like it's what you're supposed to be, if you have I don't measure up to that feelings, you shove them down. So I think that by nature of that, many open relationships thrive because of the over-communication that's built into them and because of the work people have to do to even get to the place to call themselves that. Nobody wants to be abnormal. Nobody wants to be queer. I mean, some people do, but most people, they'd love to just be vanilla, cookie cutter, like
because of the stigma that they face.
Yeah. I'd love to fit in the box. So when you can break out of the box, just acknowledging the amount of work and conversations and research that probably took for that person to make that decision.
How will you talk to your kids about sex when the time comes? And how will you do it differently than how your parents did it with you?
Yeah, I'd love to hear how you're doing it too.
Girl. That's part of the reason we're talking to you.
She said, I'm asking you.
Trying to make the connect so I can text her in a few years. How do you do that?
You have to do it constantly and gradually, like math, right? I don't wait until you're 16, but like the quadratic formula.
Don't do it.
What? When was 1 + 1? Like, did I miss that? What's a number?
Yeah.
So yeah, my kids learned head, shoulders, knees, toes, vulva, penis, and then now we're talking about babies. My daughter's 3.5. So we talk about babies. And it was interesting the other day. a friend of mine is pregnant. And then I was just like, oh, they have a baby in their belly and we're talking about it. Then she was like, do I have a baby in my belly? And I was like, no. And you can't. She's like, why? I said, well, I'm not a grown-up. Okay, so when I grow up, do I get a baby in my belly? I'm like, no, you need a daddy. And then it's just like, okay, how far down this description am I going to go, right? Because to explain what that is. But yeah, you have to build on the knowledge just like you would build on any topic that you want them to master.
Yeah. Girl, for the longest, when I was a kid, I thought a single mother, it was just immaculate conception. I really thought a single mother was just out here by herself. This baby pops up one day.
That's actually pretty beautiful though, right? Because the rest of society might look down on that person. You're looking up at them like, wow.
Yeah.
One day a baby showed up. I do want to know, because I feel like, and we were talking about this too, where my husband's like, I want to be open with our kids and like talk about sex and talk about it early, because I feel like that's the relationship he had with his father, where he was like, let me, like, I want you to be responsible. This is how you're responsible. And I'm like, and then I had no conversation. So my first instinct is to repeat what my parents did, right? And be like, don't ask, don't tell. Like, we're not talking about it. But then I'm like, okay, here's someone else who has equal say. And so where do we meet? I'm just like, I don't know where to start.
Well, why not just side with him?
Yeah.
Well, that's a
Like,
genuine
that's true,
question.
yeah.
Really, like what feels like not right about his choice?
No, I just think it's my initial reaction. It's like, whoa, no, we don't, like, we're not going to, because I feel like there's a part of me deep down that feels like if you start talking to kids about sex, they're going to have it. You're encouraging them to have it. I know, obviously, that's not the case, but deep down, that's probably my hesitation is like, oh, you're probably facilitating it,
Yeah, I think you're right, depending on the kind of conversations that you're having, right? Like, I'm an example of that. I was reading all of these books and watching videos, like, that had a very particular portrayal of it, and I had these feelings, so, like, I started engaging with it, not in a way that was empowering for me or positive or additive to my life. So I think you're right. You do encourage and you do set the seed, but that also just means change the conversation or bring more nuance to it, bring more humanity to it, bring more perspective to it. And I think that if you change the goal from, I don't want my kids to have sex or I don't want them to do that, to like, this is a normal, healthy part of the human experience. I want them to have a positive relationship with it. And I want that relationship to be age appropriate, as they grow, and you guys determine as a family what appropriate is. I trust you to have that expertise. But nonetheless, like, you change the goal from like prevention to amplification. Like, I want it to be great for you, even when you're not sexual, which you will be for a good amount of your life.
How important is it to make sure that you're not visibly uncomfortable with the conversation? Do you see what I'm saying? Because the kids pick up on, oh my gosh, my mom is so uncomfortable right now. So clearly this is an awkward topic. But it's also just day to day. Like, let's say a sex scene comes up on TV. It was always the weirdest thing.
Oh my
with your
gosh.
parents, because it's like, get the remote.
Yeah,
when is
we
this
were like
scene
looking for the
over?
remote.
So
awkward situation.
But those things send signals to your kid that this is something to either be ashamed of or to do quietly, and no one can know that you actually do it. And how important is it to model just you being comfortable?
You know what I think though too, like with that, even that remote thing, we should just have an honest conversation. Be like, I don't want to watch porn with you.
Right?
So it's not that I'm not comfortable.
Yeah.
It's not that we could talk about it afterwards, but I really don't want to be sitting beside you watching this. Let's fast forward this scene. Yeah. Can we do that? I think that's something that actually gave me an aha. I'll do that with my kids. Because there's no part of me that's like, being sex positive means sitting through this.
But it's like acknowledge the elephant in the room. Like, it's like, let's just skip
this part, right?
Yeah.
We're on the same page here?
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this question. What is something that you talk about that other people are like, how do you talk about that?
With your partner?
Period.
Money.
So
I find it's a cultural thing. In DR, it's like, oh, you got a new job. How much are they paying you?
Oh, yeah.
So
my daughter makes $100,000 a year. They're so open.
Like, you openly talk about what something costs. Now, as far as like pay transparency, it's great because it's like, oh, girl is getting this. I'm not getting paid that. But it's a very cultural thing. Whereas here, it's like you're showing off, and it seems like it's like you lack class and tact. So I would say that. What about you?
I would say money as well. Yeah, because I feel like Americans get so uncomfortable talking about money. where like I said, people will tell you what their kids make. They will ask you what you make directly. They will tell you, they'll not even brag, but just tell you exactly what they pay for everything.
It's not a thing.
Yeah. And then when it comes to negotiation, it's not taboo.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you can haggle somebody and still have a good relationship.
I wonder
afterwards.
if it's like money isn't personal, right? Like I know at least when we're negotiating, when I'm doing like brand deals and my manager just negotiating.
You're hiding.
Especially when like, when you ask for more or you respectfully decline, right? Because we're not really aligned on the pay rate. For me, I'm just like, oh, are they going to get offended? Is this going to burn bridges?
Mm-hmm.
For that was new for me, actually. That part was a little uncomfortable for me. And I realized, oh, this is business. It's not personal, which I think is different than openly talking about how much you're getting paid for something. But that took some adjustment for me.
Well, how about you?
Especially if they're being like really nice. And
Yeah.
like, trying to be flexible. And they're like, well, we can do this, we can do that. And then in the end, you're like, yeah, no.
No. Yeah. Which is okay because it's like the point I was making, I think you guys made beautifully, is it's just frequency. It's just you grew up with it. You learned the language with it. You tried it. Even with this particular case, maybe the first few emails were like awkward.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're like, oh, I have the language for this.
Mm-hmm.
And it is personal. Money's very personal, right? Like you're actually like telling someone like, so you can't go for dinner tonight? Like whatever it is, right? I always thought about that when it came to like, mechanics. Like when you like your car breaks and you're like, this is the worst day. And then that mechanic is like, yes, I can buy my daughter that bike. You know what I mean? Like there's that trade-off.
Yeah.
Money's very personal is the point I'm making. And it's a very hard topic to talk about. I'm very uncomfortable talking about money.
You're very uncomfortable?
Very uncomfortable.
Why do you think that
I don't know enough. I just feel very stupid. Really? I feel very dumb in the conversation. And then I just start like, every question starts with, this is a stupid question. Because I'm
Really?
like, yeah.
But I wonder if it's when it comes to what to do with your money, like, are you talking about like investing and saving, or is it just money in general?
Like I know the basic stuff.
Okay.
Like checking account, savings account,
Yeah.
debit card. But then when you're like,
the
Roth
Roth IRA.
Roth
Yeah.
IRA things, and this investment. I remember I watched a video once where this guy was talking about like how this guy went to jail and he had all this money in his like savings account and what an idiot this guy was. And I was like, this is me. I do not know what to do with this thing. So I'm just like, I'll just put it under my mattress.
Which full circle moment is couples are more comfortable talking about their sex life than money.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So that's all to say in all cases, it's literally just frequency. I am not any more gifted or special. I mean, I think I naturally had like a good interest area in it, which is helpful. So that as a jump off point, I think many of us naturally are interested in sex. It's not a very boring topic. So we have this natural interest area. And it just takes time and frequency. And that's why I think the buildable conversations with kids is a very healthy, helpful model. Because you just get used to saying words like vulva or whatever it is. And we have vulva cookie cutters and stuff like that. We make them. And she has a uterus puppet. So it just becomes like a part of it. And then as we build, it becomes less and less awkward.
Yeah.
If you're a little bit later with your kids, my tip is like watch TV. You don't have to look at the person and be like, what do you think about so-and-so's relationship? Right? And then it's not personal. You're not attacking. You're not asking intrusive questions. And there's not really a wrong answer. It's like this neutral party that you're just both observing.
Yeah. What is the next issue that you want to tackle as far as breaking it down, untangling it, and educating people on it?
You know what's really interesting as this conversation is such a good aha for me so there's a sex educator called Seema Anand, and Seema has a PhD in storytelling and narrative storytelling, and she also does sex education work. She's in her 60s. She's just like a glorious human being. And Seema and I have been talking about like doing something together. And for us, we really just discussing reclaiming the truth, right? Because there's so many, we have to start from this idea that like we're shameful and we're bad and this is historically a bad thing and historically a negative thing and culturally this makes us a failure in our culture's eyes, where it's like, what if you've just been told a bad story? And also, how can science and history come together to give you a different foundation? So you don't have to start off from a place of shame and disgust and abandonment, but instead, like, you just got grounding information that empowered you. And as much as that seems like so basic, because we wanted to cover off on topics that have to do with like first sex and starting off as a sexual person, but then also motherhood. What ideas did you have around what a sexual mom is like, and how did you have to reconcile that with your truth? And what mantras you have to tell yourself in order to reconcile with the fact that you did still want to get bent over and spanked, even though your kid was in the bassinet damn near sometimes beside you, right? So there's all these different things that you're like grappling with because you're like, a mom isn't supposed to want to do this. And then as you get older, so there's a lot of just, I think, narratives along our life that make us feel like we have to abandon history and abandon science in order to follow our bodies, which those things stay. Where it's like, well, what if the history and the stories are just not the right ones you've been told?
I wonder, it seems like you're pretty well traveled, but I wonder if you've been to other countries and cultures that they seem to get it right as far as like their approach to sex. Is there any country that you would
Literally
say
the
that?
question I was going to ask you. Yeah, are there any sex positive communities?
I'm not well traveled.
I saw you were in Colombia for like...
I was in Colombia.
Yeah.
Was that a place that I got to... I mean, I was there for work, so I don't have a great answer to this from like a personal travel standpoint from somebody who reads books, which is less exciting. I mean, I think that Sweden, I know Thailand, and I know just more collectivist cultures in general actually tend to have a healthier example of sex. Even I was reading about orgasm faces, how in Western societies it's like mouth open, really big sounds, almost like shock. And then in Eastern collectivist cultures, it's a smile, like you're enjoying it. Whereas this is like, it's like being taken from your body. Like you're being exercised in Western culture. And even how our porn looks. Our porn is like, I do not want to see anybody who looks like anyone I know. So give me the biggest breasts, the hugest penis. I want to see like squirting that just covers all the camera lenses, unrealistic things. So I'm not watching this, putting myself or anyone I know in those shoes because that makes me uncomfortable. Whereas in other countries like Thailand, their porn looks like the people that you saw at the shop. It's just regular, everyday people. And
what does that do when you're watching people who look like you, who aren't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, what do you think that would do?
I think, so the way I'm looking at it is I
feel like this is a test I didn't study for. I'm like,
I know. No, well, I'm also, what I'm thinking of is like, okay, so if my mom watches this, how do I answer this question in a way that makes me sound like I don't really know a lot about this? But
sorry, what's porn?
Exactly. But I would imagine for any gender, or any sex, it gives you an unrealistic expectation of what something looks like, especially if you haven't had it yet. But what it looks like, what it feels like, what the reaction should be. If I don't have this exaggerated, audible, screaming reaction, clearly this isn't as good as it should be.
I think it also dehumanizes people.
Yeah.
Because I feel like then you treat them like the scenes that you see and you don't take into consideration their feelings or how they're feeling, or, you know what I mean? It just dehumanizes people and it makes everything feel performative.
Yes, that word so sticks to me too. It's like a performance, right? Like I'm stepping into this caricature of a role. I'm emulating like this caricature, this larger than life, rather than just like a general extension of what I know to be true and joyful for me. So I think when you see normal people, you're like, oh, this is a normal activity. When you see people that are just like big and loud and out of this world, then that's just how you also view sex.
How does porn play a healthy role in your sex life?
I think that porn can play a really great role if you're like, see this? That's what I like. You know what I mean? This is what I'm looking for. Can we try this? Or even just having those thoughts. And also something really fun to watch if you do self-pleasure. Like something that just brings more enjoyment to it. And language that feels really arousing to you. It can be a lot of positive things and also a lot of negative things. Especially if you like need it and then you need like escalating versions of it in order to get you off. If it becomes a part of your arousal cycle, which it can if you constantly pair getting hard with watching porn, it can be difficult to decouple those things. And so, there could be lots of negative things to it, but it's difficult because we live in a society that obviously benefits. Like the internet is like made for porn. If you look at like the top sites, you're thinking it's going to be whatever sites you go on.
Google or whatever.
Yeah, it's like Google's like number 7 on the list. Like Pornhub, Pornsphere, Porn Circle, Pornnet.
I have a question about how, I guess, some of the concerns that you see Black women bring to you when it comes to sex.
Particularly, I actually recently did a really interesting series on interracial friendships. and like Black women telling their white friends like what their lived experiences are, like in a way that you're like, I'm not always invited to share this with you, but like fetishization, which seems like nobody really says that. Do you taste like chocolate shit? They do, right? Nobody really grabs your butt. Nobody really asks to touch your hair. Nobody really asks before sex, like, oh, if I grab your hair really hard, is it going to come off? Like, no one really says those things, and they do. So, I mean, I think that there are definitely, in terms of acknowledging that Black women are the Jezebel or the mammy, which is like you're either hypersexual or you're not sexual at all, which it sounds like your moms would be in the categories. You don't even view them as being sexual. And that neither of those are true, right? Nobody wants it all the time and is just excited for any attention, and nobody has zero urges at all. It's like the lack of nuance just like strips Black women of the humanity of the experience, to bring their humanity, to be surprising and to be unique, because there's no curiosity.
Yeah. What do you see this generation of, let's say, Black women in particular, like, man, we're doing this right. Like, we're doing this better than maybe our parents did when it comes to sex and conversations around sex?
I love Gen Z's vocalness. I love their advocacy. I love how curious they are about a range of topics. I think TikTok's really cool for that too. Yeah. That it's not even about who you follow. It's like they just know what you're into. Even if you didn't voice it, they're like, I think you might like this, Mona. And you're like, I don't like that. And then you're like, maybe I do. So I think that that's kind of cool, like that kind of way of allowing people's like natural intuitive interest to guide them versus like what you want to see, what you want others to see that you've curated. Yeah. Because it might be embarrassing to follow a sex and relationship account.
Do you mind plugging resources for people? Like, we're really big on like actionable steps that people can take after listening to an episode. So any resources you can point them to?
I'm going to say Aria for couples. I love them. It's a monthly service. It's really cool, really fun. It's less than dinner. Something new that I've been working for. In terms of exploration of your pleasure, I like omgyes.com. If you're somebody who's like, I don't even know what I like yet. They just put language. They show you videos. And then you could try it yourself and be like, I actually really like that. Or you see someone else do it and you're like, I like that. The word is orbiting. Let me take that and give that to my partner. So I think that's really a helpful resource. I love Esther Perel. I've listened to almost everything that she's listened to. She's just a great thought starter. Dr. Karen Rain is someone who talks about sexual desire quite a bit. Emily Nagoski just came out with a book that it's called Come Together, which again, the number one question is about libido. If that's something that you're like, can you guys talk more about that? These are two people who are talking about that a lot and providing really tangible resources. They're sex researchers, so they actually have worked with couples, and I think that can be really helpful.
So it's science and research based. It's not just vibes.
Yeah, I'm very big. I think that's healing for me. I mean, to me, like we talked about that question, right? Like, what do you do when you've got this gap? And I think it's information. That's what it's been for me. Yeah. It's been so empowering for me. It's lightened the load, and it's feeling like I'm not alone.
Right.
And also giving me a guiding light to work towards.
You mentioned libido real quick. Is there a quick fix, like a pill or change your diet or whatever?
Maca, ashwagandha.
Yeah?
Maybe. Yeah. Could be a good starter point for you.
Okay.
No, push-ups,
like,
sit-ups.
Yeah, it could be.
Run the block.
Working out. Yeah, there's lots of, just think of natural testosterone boosting activities or testosterone boosting supplements.
Can you talk about, because a lot of the conversations recently that are very new to me are about perimenopause, I probably am saying it wrong, and menopause and what that does to your sex drive. Because that, like, I really have not seen people talk about that until Halle Berry did, and I was like, whoa, that's a new chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a new chapter unlocked.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you could touch on that, but I feel like I'm very now interested in learning more about what's to come.
Yes, I think that interest is a great place to go and to run to. Dr. Jolene Brighton is someone that I love. She's like a hormonal doctor. She's an MD, I believe. But she's got a podcast. She has a book where it's like, yeah, like you just kind of learn. It's not just you, bruh. Like there is all of these systems at play. There's stages of life. There's so many things to account for. So it's like before we just go labeling people a prude or boring or low sex drive, it's like there's just a lot more to talk about. There's a lot more to ask about. And when we were going through pregnancy, that was such a big aha for me. I'm like, I am really not the captain of the ship. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really not the captain of the ship. And you start to really get to know those captains a bit more. And during different stages, there's going to be different captains. And so during perimenopause and menopause, different hormones run the show. You can figure out how to work with or against those depending on how much energy you have. But I think it's really helpful to name who's running the show.
Can you speak to what's still a mystery to us? Like, what do we? I know the clitoris seems to be very much, but what are we still trying to figure out about the human body and sex? That's a mystery for you guys.
Oh, that's a really great question. I think it's a useful question to think about how useful sex is, right? How necessary it is. There's a lot of benefits to orgasm I could talk about from a health perspective, but when we talk about drives, right, we're usually talking about things that you need to do, and sex is obviously a form of a drive. But then you're like, do I really need it? And why is that message being shoved down my throat? It's really interesting, too, talking to people who come from a repressed background, because there's the shifts that happen that are invisible. From like, you are asexual, don't even think about it, to, what do you mean you're not having sex yet? Oh my God. So what have you been doing? And you're like, oh, I got to start doing sex. And then you get a partner and it's just like, you're supposed to have sex all the time, every day with your married partner. And then you have kids and it's just like, you're a mom. You're not supposed to be having sex anymore. And then you get over that stage. Like, okay, your kids are out of the house. Now you should be having sex. Then you're in menopause. And it's just like, well, you're old now. So we don't want to think of you as sexual. So it is that, that constant, and it's invisible. Yeah. You just like turn around and you're like, oh, I was supposed to have switched. Like, I didn't really know that.
Yeah. And a lot of that is geared towards women.
I was just going to say.
Because men are like, here's a blue pill when things aren't functioning right. So you can keep going.
And you should. You should. And we're fine with you having sex until 80. And we'll picture you having sex until you're 80. It's completely fine. Yeah. So, I think that there's so much to know. And that's exciting because learning has been so much fun so far. So I hope it continues.
Awesome. Oh, I wanted to ask you, what do your parents think about what you're doing now?
I mean, now we've been 19 years in, so
at this point,
they've given up. They get the vibes, you know what I mean? But no, in the beginning it was terrible. For sure, it was terrible. But like glimpses of hope. My dad is a very interesting person. My mom, her reaction was like, men are going to be laughing and masturbating and getting together and just laughing at you and masturbating.
I'm like
in a circle.
Just laughing and masturbating.
Hey, y'all trying to meet up at 7?
Okay. Look at this girl. It's like all the parents' worst fears, right?
Yeah.
Like my kid is going to be a failure, a laughing stock, and they're going to be harmed. So that was her reaction.
And your dad?
My dad was like, I wish you didn't tell stories about this, but you're a good storyteller.
Oh.
So 50% there.
That's
like, I don't like the message, but you're a damn good messenger.
Yeah.
Lastly, I just wanted to ask about what are like non-sexual ways to be intimate?
Oh my gosh. Sorry, no, because I've been wanting to ask her.
I
just had a conversation. I'm probably going to cut this, but I just had a conversation with my husband about, like, I have different routes. Like, I finally kind of put a word to it. I have a different route to the end than you do sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like, for me, a really intimate conversation where he's being vulnerable and we're having a connection, that turns me on, right? And it feels less transactional. But it was like an aha moment, like, no, this is what it is for me. What are the different ways of intimacy?
I define intimacy as close and personal. You could say close and vulnerable. So what I mean by close and vulnerable is like, I'm letting you into a part of myself that you could hurt me. Like, I'm giving you something that's very soft, something very sacred, something that this is information that you could take and you could twist. And so it's like it's very tender. And there's beauty in that tenderness, but there's also like a laid bareness to it, a nakedness to it. And the personal part means it's with you. Like, it's not with anybody else. I couldn't just swap you out. Like, this is genuinely with you.
Right.
And I talk about this and they're like, it's kind of impossible to have genuinely intimate interactions on the internet because it's like the people can get swapped out easily. Like, I might be telling you something that's very close to me or kind of that sounds vulnerable, but it's either the person at the Starbucks counter listening or my mom. Yeah. So like, there's just nothing. And so a lot of sex is actually not intimate because like maybe we're doing something, but by nature of it, it is vulnerable. you're exposing yourself to STIs, to
Right.
potential pregnancy. The person seeing you naked, like there's no better time to stab somebody than during sex. So inherently it's going to be a vulnerable act, but it's not always personal. So any activity that you can swap that into, that might even be like playing a game together. Something that's very tender to you and you only want to do it with that person. You know, a meal, a conversation, touch, crying with that person, watching a certain kind of movie. So I think that's where intimacy thrives, in those spaces that are both tender and things that you only would do if it was with that person at that time.
Oh, why do you want to have sex after a really bad argument?
Arousal confusion. And that is because you're in a heightened aroused state because of anger. Your amygdala is activated, your heart rate is up, you are in a state of readiness, and you're around someone that you're sexually attracted to. So those feelings of anger can very easily transition to feelings of lust. If the person, when they are aroused, goes into fight, which is an active state. So we know there's fight, flight, or freeze. So some people, when they're in an aroused and activated state, go into flight. They just want space. They want to get away from that person. Some people are in fight. I want activity. I want action. And sex is aggressive. You know, it's a physical act in the same way. And then freeze are people who it's like, I don't have anything left. I'm completely collapsed. So I think it depends on how you metabolize anger. But if you are somebody who's in a state of readiness, I think that sex is a natural next step.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, when you said arousal confusion, for me, it sounds like, maybe it's not a good idea to have sex like once you've had an argument. Like, it's not healthy.
No,
Like, you need to identify your emotions.
It's kind of like
confused.
Well, it's just more like you're already in that state, right? Like you're already
Like
up,
physiologically,
right? So you're already up. You have all of like the body components necessary for arousal. They're already fired and activated. So that might be the next step for you. I definitely don't experience that.
Really?
Yeah, I definitely am like flight.
Huh.
Get
Same.
away from me. And even if someone's like talking at me loud or aggressive, I'm like, exit conversation. Like
I'm
I do
lacing
not.
up my Nikes.
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
I think the way I see it is passion.
yeah.
And I mean, it can't be like it's a passionate argument. I'm not talking about something unhealthy. You care. You're passionate. You really want, like, this is you invested. And then it's like, so do you want to move to?
You actually look really good right now. You stubborn son of a bitch.
Exactly. So Shan, what is next for you? What are you working on? What can we expect?
You know what? I don't really have a great answer for this right now. And I'm working on that. So that's really exciting, which is why I'm not doing podcasts right now, because I don't have an answer for this. But what's next is like enjoying the now. And I really enjoyed the now. So thank you for having me.
I love that.
And thank you. Honestly, you're so needed in this space. And I feel like there's a lot of people that have learned so much from you, myself included. And I think the episodes in your podcast, LA reminds me, because when I used to work out here, I would listen to your podcast all the time. And I'm just like, I've learned so many new things from you and things that I didn't even know to ask. So I think you're like a wealth of knowledge, honestly, needed.
Do you feel that love and that you're needed and that you're appreciated?
Yes, I do. I think
Good.
it's easy on the internet to let the negative amplify and like then to start to question.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy. It's really nice to hear. So I'll say that.
Good.
It's like I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Off the Record. We'll join y'all in the next episode.